The Birthday Party by Harold Pinter. Characterization. Past history is not important. Completely realistic with life and vitality, ordinary, colloquial language, sharply unconventional method of characterization. Ibsen past histories of the characters were the soil in which the whole plot has its roots. Pinter past histories of the characters, like their offstage lives and their social background, are not so important. What is said and done on stage is important. Still, every character gives some account of their past. Hamlet, no love scene but in deep love, whether true or false, commitment of love through marriage. Stanley's concerts. McCann, lived a quiet life, small business, compelled to come, later, town of Basingstoke instead of Maidenhead, missing links in the conversation. No characters defined by their past history because they are liable to distort it, nor are defined by their position in society which they are liable to misrepresent, also not defined by their physical appearance which is seldom described, rarely any physical description by Pinter, hardly any character in details. Stanley, first appearance unshaven/pajama jacket, spectacles, towards the end, clean-shaven and well-dressed, not told anything about his face/features/figure. Individualized characters. No multiplicity of characters, 6 characters, even fewer in his other plays. Each character is essential to the pattern. No supernumeraries, individual characters, wide differences, different dialogues. If taciturnity, talking too little, is the key to Patty's character, garrulity to Meg's. Goldberg, bossy and patronizing, while McCann is somewhat servile. Stanley is like nobody else, artist who has chose out of society but who is forced back into it. Lulu belongs to a different class altogether. Convincing characters, despite the mystery of their motivation. All convincingly drawn. 3 inmates, Meg/Patty/Stanley, next door neighbor Lulu, 2 intruders, Goldberg/McCann, realistically portrayed, interrelations, encounters. Convincingly depicted, no problem with Meg, Patty, Lulu, perfectly simple-minded but mystery with Stanley, Goldberg, highly complex characters, and McCann, no hard distinctions between what is real and what is unreal, between what is true and what is false. Stanley's relationship with Meg, and his sense of humor. Stanley, Goldberg, most elaborately drawn, most complex and baffling, yet real and solid. When Meg ruffles Stanley's hair affectionately, he pushes her away. When she strokes his arm lovingly, he shrinks from her in disgust. When she asks for a cigarette, he bluntly refuses to give one. When his neck tickled amorously, asked her to go away. His whole talk with Meg shows not only an apparent dislike, but also his sense of humor, unreliability of Stanley's accounts. Informed of 2 strangers, Stanley becomes apprehensive immediately, avenges telling about van and wheelbarrow, though later realized it was his own fear. Jobs offered and 2 concerts, whether true or false, more or less poser someone who pretends to be something they are not, or to have qualities that they do not have. Manager of this boarding house, thus he can assume different identities to suit his purpose. Stanley's regression to a state of childhood. Unclear, staying/hiding, why so apprehensive about the visit, but surely feeling insecure, afraid of adult responsibility, dependent on Meg, declining Lulu's invitation, Meg's birthday present, suddenly start beating drum violently. Stanley's aggressiveness. Yet self-assertive and aggressive, defies Goldberg. McCann to sit, kicks Goldberg's stomach, blind man's buff, tries to strangle Megan to rape Lulu. Stanley's miserable plight, and our pity for him. However, Stanley ultimately becomes an object of pity for us. The grueling interrogation to which he is subjected by the 2 men, Act 2, almost wrecks him, and whatever is left of his individuality is destroyed by the brutal treatment which he subsequently receives from the 2 persecutors, Act 3. No wonder that he suffers a nervous breakdown under the effect of the inhuman in which he is treated by the agents of the organization which he seems to have offended in some way. At the end of the second brainwashing session, he is no position even to speak and can only produce gurgling sounds from his throat. At the end of the first brainwashing session too, he had almost been bereft of speech, but now he seems to have lost even his faculty of thought. Portrayal of Goldberg, reminiscences of his past. Goldberg is outwardly a very cultured man, but there is something sinister about him. He is a Jew who is acutely conscious of the religion and the race to which he belongs, and yet he tries to produce an impression of having been assimilated into the larger social world around him and of having outgrown his ethnic affiliations. He often gets into a reminiscent mood. In Act 1 he speaks about the uncle who used to take him to various places during the early years of his youth. That, he says, was a golden time for him. In Act 2 he speaks about this sweetheart and about his mother who used to give him hot food. In the same act he also speaks about his wife and the splendid funeral she had received on her death. In Act 3 he speaks about his father who, at his deathbed, had given him some very valuable advice. Goldberg's tendency to reminiscence and to speak about his past probably shows his desire to escape from the present into the past, into his boyhood and childhood when he used to enjoy the affection and love of his uncle and his mother. Perhaps Goldberg has some private anxieties from which he wishes to escape. Other characters. Goldberg's attitude towards McCann is patronizing, and he is even in a position to administer a severe rebuke to McCann when he is annoyed. His attitude towards Stanley is outwardly almost benevolent, but actually he had come as an avenging devil to persecute and punish Stanley for whatever wrong Stanley might have done. The cross-examination to which Goldberg and McCann subject Stanley shows that they are both gangsters or terrorists who have come to bully Stanley into total submission and to play havoc with Stanley's mind. Goldberg produces a very favorable impression on us as a speaker. The speech which he makes at the birthday party is not only eloquent but impressive. However, he is a most unscrupulous and hypocritical man, as is proved by his seduction of Lulu during the night after the birthday party had ended. He boasts of his sound health just when he is feeling badly shaken and when he cannot even speak coherently because of what, aided by McCann, he has done to Stanley. It becomes necessary for McCann to blow into Goldberg's mouth to restore to him some of his lost vitality. However, it must be admitted that, despite his brutality and inhumanity, his unscrupulousness and his hypocrisy, he does impress us favorably with his sociability, his eloquence in speech, and his wit and sense of humor, particularly as evidenced in his dialogue with Lulu when she has come to complain that he had taken undue advantage of her and seduced her by his cunning. Portrayal of McCann. McCann is an able and competent subordinate of Goldberg. However, he is not as hardened and seasoned a man as his boss. At the very outset he feeling uneasy about the job he is expected to perform in the boarding house, and he anxiously asks Goldberg to tell him the nature of the job to be done. There is no doubt at all that McCann is a gangster. He adopts a tough attitude towards Stanley when they meet at the beginning of Act 2. He would not shrink from using physical violence against Stanley if it becomes necessary. He remains impervious to Stanley's pleas and to Stanley's effort to befriend him. He lends valuable support to Goldberg on both occasions when Stanley is subjected to a brainwashing operation. He is an Irishman with string roots in his country. He drinks only Irish whiskey and, when he is asked to sing a song, he sings a patriotic one, expressive of his homesickness. He callously breaks Stanley's spectacles during the birthday party. He has a bad habit of tearing a newspaper sheet into strips when he is doing nothing else. In Act 3 he too feels shaken by what he and his boss have done to Stanley, and he plainly says that he would not want to go again into Stanley's room upstairs. He joins Goldberg in ridiculing Lulu when Lulu complains of having been seduced by Goldberg. Like Goldberg, the Irishman too has his good points, and is not an unredeemed villain. His real ability and his ready intelligence appear in the manner in which, like Goldberg, he puts question to Stanley and makes comments on him in the course of the 2 brainwashing sessions. He too, like High Boss, is a convincing person. Symbolic significance of these 3 characters. Goldberg and McCann have been regarded as possessing a symbolic significance. According to one view, the two men are embodiments of Stanley's thoughts and personifications of Stanley's sense of guilt. According to another view, these two men are messengers of death, or personifications of man's basic primitiveness, or even agents of a repressive society. The two men may also be treated as representing the forces of corruption and violence because they wreck and destroy Stanley's personality. It must, however, be pointed out that Pinter himself did not admit that his characters had any symbolic significance. Pinter has expressed the view that to interpret any character in symbolic terms is to emasculate him. According to Pinter, when critics are unable to understand any character, they tend to put him on a symbolic shelf. But Pinter's disclaimer has not prevented critics from interpreting both his plays and his characters in symbolic terms. Stanley too has been interpreted in symbolic terms. He may be looked upon as an artist who has rebelled against society and has begun to live away from it, but who is ultimately forced to return to society and to conform to its values of materialism. Meg, a comic figure. Meg too has been made to live before us. She is more or less a comic figure. She mothers Stanley but would also like to become his mistress, if she has not already done so. She amuses us greatly when she feels scared to hear about a van and a wheelbarrow, and later on seeing Goldberg's car. She amuses us also by giving a muddle-headed account of Stanley's concerts to Goldberg. In the end she amuses us by her vanity in thinking that she was the belle of the ball. Lulu, as uninhibited girl, Lulu, though briefly drawn, is yet a real person. She is an uninhibited but timid girl. In Act 1 she offers her friendship to Stanley but goes away disappointed. In Act 2, she encourages Goldberg to make love to her, but screams and faints when she perceives someone advancing towards her in the darkness. In Act 3, she becomes an almost pathetic figure when she complains that Goldberg had seduced her by his cunning during the night. Patey, the quiet, non-interfering husband. Patey makes very brief appearances but even he leaves a lasting impression upon our minds. Many husbands will recognize themselves in him. He is a man of few words, and he wants to keep his wife in good humor. He is indulgent towards her little vanities and he does not interfere with her activities. He certainly feels concerned about Stanley when he sees him in the clutches of the two intruders, but he can do nothing to save him. He knows danger when he sees it, and he knows that discretion is the better part of valor. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.